Good evening, everybody, and good morning, Hari. So we come to this next session for the parents, and we have our faculty who will be taking the sessions in the coming week, Hariharan, and you might have heard his intro in the inaugural event, but I just thought I'll share something more about him so that you can get a context where he's coming from and what he's going to do in the next week. So Hari is the head of academic affairs for Raising a Mathematician Foundation, and he's also the co-founder of the foundation. And we all had sat at this home when we brainstorm about this idea of starting the foundation, and we can see it started from his home. So Hari is very unique in terms of a lot of things. One is the way in which he can take mathematics and intertwine between economics, finance, accounting, and students don't realize which compartment they are into and what subject they are learning because they see all this as one wholesome thing. So Hari has that immense ability, and one of the things that I feel that makes him do this is the kind of learning that he has done in mathematics. Now he's coming from a pure accounting and finance background, and he, in commerce, those who have taken up commerce, you would know that there is not much of intense mathematics in the curriculum of commerce. Even in CA, they don't do rigorous mathematics. So Hari was always passionate about math and finance, and then he did a lot of self learning in different areas in math. He also did 5 papers in actuarial science. Five papers. He completed
six papers.
6 papers. Sorry,
Mhm.
he completed 6 papers in actuarial science, which definitely Hari, you would have got a lot of good math from that background. And then he went to do his PhD in management accounting. And since last 5 years, we have been talking mostly remotely like this, and every time we speak, he says that my friends back in Bombay, they wouldn't agree with me if I tell them that I am doing more of mathematics than of accounting, even though I'm doing a PhD in accounting. So I think he is that side of the coin which most of us don't see of mathematics, because when we look at math, we see math in engineering, math in computer science, math in as pure math, or math applied in data science and so on. But we don't see the other side of math applied in finance, and what does finance, accounting, and economics mean. Because if you are from a commerce background, then it would mean something, but then the kind of math that is involved brings it to a very different level. So I think we'll get some good insights about how math is like in the kind of areas that Hari is working in, and what is the kind of stuff that he is going to bring onto the plate of the students in the coming week. So with that, over to you, Hari.
Thank you, Vinay. It was very kind of you to say these things. And before I start, I will just say a few things. Uh, you know, Earlier when we started the Raising a Mathematician training program in 2014, I used to teach a lot of pure math stuff. Uh, but then Vinay made me realize that there is something unique that I can offer, which others may not be able to offer, and that's why I gravitated towards doing these kind of sessions. So I am very thankful to Vinay for actually pointing that out. In fact, he was the one who said that you should create a module on application of math in finance and economics, which we did, and now we have a kind of a half semester course that can be actually applied in a university setting for the undergraduate level students, if at all we want them to. So so with that, let me just begin. I will give you an overview of the sessions that I will be doing in the next week. Uh, One session that I already took in Brahmagupta batch, that was on May 3rd. I did an introduction to machine learning. And the objective of that session was to make kids aware that there is an area called as machine learning and what exactly does it mean. That what do we mean by saying machine learning, and what are the principles that lay behind machine learning, and so on. And I have added a lot of further readings for them to read. For the readings that they may not be able to access, I have provided the PDF material so that they can start reading and build their knowledge from that. I think it will take around 1 or 2 years if they want to actually study them from the links that I provided and dive deep by searching more if they need. Of course, they can get back to me once they have read all those further readings, and I will be happy to provide them with more readings um, in coming years. And I'm assuming when I say 1 or 2 years, I'm assuming they have other things to do as well. Otherwise, they can actually finish it up uh, faster, because that's how able all these kids are. Starting from May 10 to May 14, I have a session with both the batches every day. So it's in the evening for Brahmagupta and Sridhara batch. We are combining them. Uh, so I will be doing some selected works of Euler. Euler, for for some of you who may not be aware, Euler was a fantastic mathematician uh, in the 17th century and sorry, in the 18th century rather. And the kind of math that he did has impact even today. To just to give you a perspective, when he was in his later part of his life, he lost his eyesight. That means he couldn't read or he couldn't see, and he published 50 papers in a year for 3 years. So that's how prolific he was. After his death, his papers kept coming out. And in fact, after his death, his last paper was published 50 years after his death. So that's how prolific he was. So any field of mathematics that you take, there will be a reference to Euler's work. So the idea of this topic is to make sure that students are aware of the work that he has done. Of course, some of the works that he has done is pretty complex. Some of the works are easily understandable by them. And we have made sure that they come to that level. So we gave them some pre-reading material. We gave two problem sets for them to solve. And many of the students are solving them or have solved them. And we have TAs who are conducting office hours, and the students are clarifying their doubts. We will provide them the solutions before May 10, so that they are ready for this session, so that they can understand the principles behind Euler's works. And once they do that, they can always dive deeper, because there is so much that they can do after that. But for that, we need to create some base. And this will also be a good input for one of the sessions that our TA will be doing. Sundar Raman will be doing a session on some open problems in mathematics. So he's going to take 2 or 3 open problems. And one of the problems that he's going to take is a very famous hypothesis called as the Riemann's hypothesis. And Riemann's hypothesis builds on the work of Euler that I will be discussing in this session. And we also have Atul Dikshit sir, who will be doing a session on Ramanujan's mathematics. And Ramanujan's math also took some of the stuff that Euler did. So it will form a feeder for the sessions that will come up in coming days. Then I will be doing a session on introduction to game theory. I think game theory is one area that has impacted so many different areas. It started as a topic in pure math, and in fact, John Nash. There is a very famous movie called A Beautiful Mind, which is a biopic of Professor John Nash. John Nash was a mathematician at Princeton University who laid down the foundations of game theory. But it happens that it found so many applications in game theory. Sorry, it found so many applications in economics that he was awarded a Nobel Prize in economics, I think, in 1994. So that's how impactful this area has been. So you can take any field and you can see that there is a game theoretic application. For example, self-driving cars, which is coming up. It's a game between the person who is developing the car, the software that is required to drive this car, and people on the road or the obstacles on the road. So you are playing some kind of a game. Some games are competitive, some games are cooperative. Right now we are in the situation where we are playing a cooperative game, because in the COVID situation we all want all of us to not compete with each other but cooperate, in the sense that we don't want people to go out and reduce the probability that each one of us gets the virus. So we are playing a cooperative game. So what is the difference between competitive games, what's the difference between cooperative games, and what are the principles that drive, or how the decision making happens in a competitive game versus cooperative game? When do you bring in regulation, when do not bring in regulation? For example, one of the easiest ways in which you can think of regulation is, let's say you are doing something, and whatever you are doing, it's basically, whenever we take any decision, there is a cost benefit analysis we do. But sometimes any action that we take not only has cost for us, it also has cost for others. And when it has cost for others, that's when you want an outside party to intervene. The reason for that is, we as individuals, we internalize the cost that we incur, but we do not or may not internalize the costs that others will incur because of our actions. For example, think of COVID. I may say that, okay, I don't care if I get virus. So I may take actions that are detrimental to the probability of me getting a virus. But there is a cost that others also have to incur because of my actions. That means whatever actions I am taking has externalities. So how do you come up with a way by which you can make me internalize the cost that is also incurred by others because of my action? So we will discuss those aspects and how math will play a role over there. Then we will do a topic on origins of risk in mathematics. Like, so this area, I think, I don't know in which bucket should I put it. It can be economics, it can be finance, it can be cognitive decision making, it can be psychology. I think it just spans boundaries. That is the reason why I selected uh, this particular topic, because no matter what these kids will do in the future, risk is something that they should be uh, aware of. And an area that is also interesting for the students to explore in the future is cognitive science. How does our mind actually go about decision making? And that's different from psychology. So psychology will talk about just the decision making and how we do it. The cognitive science will look at which part of the brain is actually causing those decisions to be taken, and how you can improve uh, uh, the human cognition in that area. So origins of risk in mathematics. And I am going to do this session more like a PhD session, where I will try to give them ideas, and where they will have to extend the ideas based on whatever we will be covering. And I will encourage parents to attend this session if they want to see what happens in a classroom, because some of you might think that, oh, this is whether my kid is going to understand this or not. And that's the reason why I want you to attend and see for yourself what happens in the classroom when these kids are doing this. And one thing that I feel that we should communicate to our kids is that when they go in school, or when they are in school, generally what happens is we grasp everything that has been told to us. So our understanding is 100%, and that's what we expect from everything that we do. But sometimes what happens is that's not the case. Sometimes we get 70%, sometimes we get 80%. But when we do it repeatedly, we will eventually get. Sometimes, in fact, now when I listen to some of the sessions that Vinay takes and I attend those sessions, I feel that, oh wow, I had not thought about this connection earlier, and something clicks. So it's a very creative process. So please communicate to your kid that if they don't understand something, they will eventually understand if they attend these things, or go back to these things. And that's where note taking, as Hetal had mentioned in our session, is extremely important, so that you can fall back on that later on. The last topic that I'm planning to take now, it all depends on how the students take these topics and how much time do we have. I'm planning to take a session on mathematical thinking to avoid logical fallacies. Again, a topic that I would encourage all the parents to attend. It doesn't require any base of mathematics, so to say. It's basically a mathematical thinking that we are focusing on. And the reason why I thought about this topic was, I saw a lot of forwards that come to me on WhatsApp, which absolutely make no sense. So there is some statement made, and there is some conclusion being made, and that statement and conclusion has absolutely no relation between the two. For example, I can give you a very simple example. If I say, if there is rain in Mumbai, then we can see that the ground is wet. It makes a lot of sense. But it doesn't make sense if I say, if there is rain in Chennai, the ground in Mumbai is wet. The reason for that it doesn't make sense is, although the statement that it rained in Chennai is true, the ground in Mumbai is not wet because of the rains in Chennai. Although the two things have happened, doesn't necessarily mean that one has caused the others. So those kind of things. So there is a lot of things that are coming to us, where we are, mm, subconsciously, we tend to believe those things, because we do not think a lot before we actually come to a conclusion based on what we are told. So I thought that it will be a very important topic, because these kids, when they grow up, they will come across more and more such things, where we do not where we, common people are making statements, and not necessarily it is the expert that is making those statements. So I thought that it will be a very important exercise, or very important topic to start right now, because right now is a good age where they can critically evaluate or think about these things. And that reminds me of one more thing. You know, the advantage of mathematics is the disadvantage of mathematics. Let me elaborate on that. When I say that, when we write things in mathematics, mathematics is as a language, it's mathematics is all has its own language as well. So when we communicate some things in mathematics, it is less confusing. But when we communicate something in a different language, let's say if we converse in English and we want to communicate something in English, there is a good scope for confusion when we are communicating logical ideas. And that's a big challenge that we face. And that is one thing that I want to tell all the parents, that we need to focus on our kids ability to converse in a language that is understood by everyone, because mathematical language is not understood by everyone. So the moment they step out of their circles, they have to communicate the same things in a language that everyone understands. And I cannot tell you how important it is that we focus on these communication skills. Let me give you some example. So we all know who was the first person to land on moon. There is a very famous, this scene in Three Idiots movie, uh, where they say that, everybody knows Neil Armstrong. He was the first person to land on moon. The second person to land on moon was Sir Edwin Aldrin, but nobody knows. And the conclusion that they draw is that everyone remembers the winner. Nobody remembers the second person. But we need to understand why. Why is it that Edwin Aldrin was second, and why was that Neil Armstrong was first? It In fact, Sir Edwin Aldrin was a senior of Neil Armstrong. But when they came back from this program, the president of US, I think it was Kennedy at that time, he spoke with both of them, and then when he came out, he told the press that Neil Armstrong was the person. The reason why he did that was Sir Edwin Aldrin was not good at communication, and he knew that when the press will ask questions, it will be easier for Neil Armstrong to answer those questions, and it won't be easy for Sir Edwin Aldrin to answer those questions. So just because Edwin Aldrin was was not good at communication, he lost on that opportunity. So the point I want to make is that it's excellent to have these mathematical skills. It's an excellent skill to have the ability to communicate in mathematical language, but at the same time, these kids should also be able to communicate in a common language that is understood by everyone. And that's a big challenge, and that's, I think, a very important lesson for experts as well. I think many of you are doctors in this group. So an excellent doctor is one who can communicate to the patient in a language that the patient understands, and not in the language that the doctor understands. Because at the end of the day, we need to build that trust with common people, and the only way we can create that trust is by communicating in a way that they will understand. So that was the big reason for this mathematical thinking to avoid logical fallacies topic. So I will stop sharing my screen, and if there are questions, I will be happy to take.
So let me start with my question, Hari. uh,
So
so
this is coming as a parent or as a faculty?
you can take it either ways. So the question is, first of all, these topics are never covered in school, right? Are these topics specifically covered even in college? Is my question.
Short answer is no. Some of them might be covered, but definitely not the way in which we cover. So game theory will be done, but it will be done in a very abstract or in a very dry way without the intuition why game theory is required, or the motivation is not very clear when students do these topics. Uh, Especially if you do an undergraduate program in, let's say, economics, which is not math intense, and many programs are not math intense, you will not get a flavor at all. So let me give you my example. Till the time I started teaching, or till the time I started doing my actuarial science, I did not know that economics has heavy mathematics. So I had done economics in my 11th grade, 12th grade, first year BCom, second year BCom, and third year BCom. All that we did was, just talk about ideas. It was just, prose form. You just write these lengthy answers, but it was not talking about how these ideas came up. So the only thing that we did was graphs. So you will put something on the x-axis, you will put something on the y-axis, but there was no discussion about why we are doing what we are doing. And I think that's an important challenge that we face whenever these topics are discussed at the college level as well, because many times these ideas are easy to communicate with mathematics, and students understand it better and remember it or apply it. And I think the reason for that is not all the students who come have a strong math background. So that's why you cannot create curriculum where you emphasize so much on math. So so the good colleges, like the top colleges, Sriram College of Commerce, or the St. Stephen's College, or the Delhi School of Economics, the elite colleges, they do a lot of stuff where it's math heavy. So it depends on how strong the math department is in those colleges, or those universities. Even if you come to, let's say, a university like Michigan State, you won't get math heavy econ courses, at least in the undergraduate program. But if you happen to go to MIT, the only thing that you will do in economics is math. So you won't feel like you have done anything in economics. If you do a master's from Indian Statistical Institute in economics, the 2 years will be spent on doing math and stats. You won't even think that you have done economics, but all that you are doing is creating a base to understand economics better. So it depends a lot on the college that you select, and it's important to have select a college where the math department is strong.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Hari. So those who have questions can do a raise hand. I'll just read out a wonderful question that Gayatri has asked, Vagison's mother. That this is about each faculty across Epsilon sessions. Can you please talk about how you are able to bring such high-level topics to very young kids, even when they don't have prerequisites, we presume?
Yeah, that's a big challenge, right? And that there's a lot of thought that we put behind this to make sure that we can bring down the topic to the level of the students. And I think one way in which that can be done is by contextualizing or providing them examples that they will be able to connect with. And I mean, think of someone like Swami Chinmayananda. When he learned the Vedas, he thought that this is something that people should be able to understand. But at that time, it was considered to be considered to be a knowledge that someone seeks, and someone knowledgeable only can understand the concepts from the Vedas. But he decided, no, what I am going to do is I'm going to now go back and make sure that even a common man or common person is able to grasp these concepts. And he started delivering lectures where he simplified the content of Vedas. So I think it's not the case that we cannot bring down to the level of the kids. It's just that um, we have to be clear in our mind that these are the kids for whom we have to come up with this kind of topics, and bring the examples accordingly. So for example, if I'm going to talk about game theory, I'm not going to talk about, let's start with how we can make sure that climate change as a topic, we are going to bring all the countries together, and what are the challenges that we face in solving this problem around climate change, and how we are going to bring. So it won't be that. It would be a simple game, like for example, I have to grade. So let's say you grade for your friend and your friend grades for you. What is the grade that you want to give to your friend? So, and we will make some rules around it. So if you bring an example that is easily understandable by them, I think it becomes easier for them to grasp as well.
Like if I can add on to that, so it's more to of course there is content to it, but it's more understanding something like the child psychology, and understanding what will they like, and how can, in which form can we give it to them, and so on. So yeah, I completely agree. Yeah. Anyone else, any other question? Like, I have few questions. So until somebody asks, I'll keep asking, but do stop me, otherwise it will be just a normal conversation that Hari and I have all the time. So please post your question or do a raise hand. So Hari, you would have seen, yeah, I mean, after you started doing these topics to students who are particularly not exposed to these kind of things, right? Can you share, your early experience? For example, math.com, the module that you do for finance and economics, math and finance and economics. So what were your experiences when you taught topics like calculus without going into limits and limits and continued and all that to middle school students? So if you can share some experience from that.
So this module actually came. It's not that I was not doing it. It was just that It was not a structured module, because a lot of times I used to teach these things to CA students, because I wanted to make them understand or create a base before diving into the actual concepts in economics or finance. But we thought that, okay, this is a good module to bring it down to the middle school or high school students. And what I do in that program is not that I do math, finance or economics. I do math. The only thing is the motivation comes from finance or economics. Let me give you a simple example. We all know how compound interest works. So we know the formula for compound interest is amount is equal to principal times 1 plus the rate to the power n. Now the question that comes up is, okay, this is what happens when you compound it on an annual basis. Now what will happen if you compound it on a semi-annual basis? What if the compounding becomes twice a year? Okay, now you see that the amount actually is higher if you do more compounding. Now let's ask what will happen if you do compounding 4 times a year. That is, the compounding happens quarterly. Okay, the amount actually goes up. What will happen if you do compounding on a monthly basis? That is, every month the compounding will take place. Okay, the amount increases. Now you ask the question, what will happen if you compound it every minute? So, okay, the amount increases. Now let us ask what will happen if you compound it infinite number of times. So which is called as a continuous compounding. So the interesting question is, oh, you're compounding it infinite number of times. Maybe the amount becomes infinite, but we know that that is not true, because if amount was becoming infinite, then everybody would be having infinite pots of money just by investing in something that provides continuous compounding, or the continuous compounding as a concept would not exist. So there is something that is happening. So you are compounding the money infinite number of times, but the amount is still finite. How is that possible? And that's how we start introducing the concept of E, which is a number between 2 and 3, and it's derived using binomial theorem. In fact, the pre-reading material that we have given, and one of the problems over there is actually a derivation of E. Not many students will realize that they have derived E, but they do derive E indirectly. And that was one idea that Euler had applied. And the motivation for E is actually continuous compounding. But unfortunately, we never teach it that way. So how is it taught in an a pure math area, or how is it taught in CMI, for example? In CMI, everybody has done some amount of derivatives integration. The first year they will say, okay, we know that the derivative of e raised to x is e raised to x. So we will start over there, and then we will. But it's a very abstract way of doing. You do not realize what was the motivation behind that concept, and it actually doesn't help the student extending these ideas for into other fields. So what we do is mathematics. The motivation comes from finance, economics, accounting. For example, if we think of straight line, we know that straight line can be represented as y equal to mx plus c. But in accounting, the same equation is called as total cost, because you can bifurcate the total cost as something which is fixed cost and something that is variable cost. And I think everyone will understand what is a fixed cost and what is a variable cost. The rent that you pay for your house is a fixed cost, because it doesn't matter whether you stay there for a day or whether you stay there for 15 days. You still have to incur that cost. So no matter how many units you produce, you have to incur that cost. Variable cost is something that varies with the number of units that you produce. So it's similar to the slope of the line, and your fixed cost is similar to the intercept of the line, what we learn in pure math. So we are using that pure math area, and we are applying it in a cost function. Now an interesting question that might come up, how do we know that the cost function is linear? What if the cost function is non-linear? How can we know that? So one idea could be that you go into a company, you get data, and you find out whether whether a linear curve fits or a non-linear curve fits. Okay, you do this exercise. Now the big problem that I face as a policy maker is, oh, I don't know whether whatever you have observed in one organization, is it true in other organizations as well? How do we know that this linear fit or a non-linear fit can be extrapolated to other areas? Or in other words, how can we generalize this? So there is a recent paper in a top management journal called as Management Science. So what they did was they took the data from the census of US, and they found the data on various costs, and they tried to fit a line, and they found that the line does a good job at explaining the relationship between total cost, variable cost, and fixed cost. And that was a very good insight. And that paper only came up in 2020. So we are talking about ideas that are right now. We are not talking about ideas that are 50-year-old. We are not talking about ideas that are 70 years old. We are talking about ideas that are getting used now. Another example that comes to my mind is, I talk about this. A language can be saved by a mathematician, not by a linguist. A language cannot be saved by a linguist. A language can be saved by a mathematician. For example, if the government wants to decide, I have 5 languages that are going to get extinct, but I want to revive these languages. How do I decide where do I put my money? Now, a linguist cannot tell you where the money should be put. For example, suppose we are concerned about Sanskrit becoming extinct or Pali language becoming extinct. How do you know that it is becoming extinct? You need data, you need evidence. One of the ways in which you can tackle this problem is use something called as differential equations or derivatives. So what you do is you see the data in 1900. Let's say in 1900, how many people were speaking Pali language? Now you are in 2021. You see how many people are speaking the language. So we see there is a decay, and once there is a decay, we can ask the question: when will this become zero? So when will this become zero is the number of years you have left to revive the language, and accordingly you can decide, okay, a particular language is going to take another 100 years to become extinct, whereas one language is going to become extinct is in 25 years. So I need to provide funds for the language that is going to become extinct in 25 years. It doesn't matter whether I speak Sanskrit or not. It doesn't matter whether I speak Pali or not. It matters whether I understand the math or not. That's how I can save the language. No matter how much I speak Sanskrit, I won't be in a position to save that language. So there is application of math even in areas like linguistics. It's just that if you are aware, it's like yesterday I mentioned, if you are a pure mathematician, you can always go into applied areas, but you cannot do it vice versa. It's similar to learning a classical music. If you are a classical musician, it's like learning pure math. Once you are a classical musician, you can go into different areas. But if you are a light musician, if you take a film singer, just for the sake of taking a name, Udit Narayan, for example, fantastic singer, a legend in his own right, but he can't sing the classical songs because he's not trained in that area. It's exactly similar when it comes to pure versus applied math. Pure mathematicians can span boundaries as and when they decide they want to.
Thank you so much, Hari. I mean, you couldn't have given a better example to conclude. And parents, on a lighter note, I tell this to many people. Hari is a ruthless teacher. He will not spare a single opportunity to start a class. So, but Hari, what you said, it gave a very broad perspective. So thank you for sharing. There is one question in the chat, and then I'll go to Mr. and Mrs. Joshi. Does game theory, we all know the video game Temple Run. Does game theory base is present in those kind of video games as well?
I'm not aware. I'm not aware. But it looks like, I think it's not a game theory as such that will be applied. You will be applying more of randomized algorithms over there to make sure that how randomly you want the things to run around, and then you will come up with, because there is no strategic element to it. So when we talk about games, you are talking about strategic. What is the other party doing? The other party is doing something that is hampering your response or hampering your ability to win. So I don't know whether that is strategically designed. If it is strategically designed, or let's say if I do something, the other party can change its strategy, then there will be application for game theory. So I mean, people have looked at, I can't tell you, stone, papers and scissors. Stone, papers and scissors has been used so many times by cognitive science people, by psychologists, by economists, to understand human decision making. Just a simple game of stone, papers and scissors, you know, because we know that stone, papers and scissors doesn't have a clear winner, so to say. There is no clear strategy by which if I play this, I will always win. So they want to see what happens to people when they lose a game, whether they change their strategy. What happens to people if they win their game? Do they continue with the same strategy? Do they change their strategy? So these kind of questions they have asked just by playing stone, papers and scissors. So in Temple Run, it could, I don't know how the algorithms are designed. If they are designed in such a way that it depends on what the person is playing. Like in chess, chess is designed in such a way that the computer can play a game depending on what I do, but that I do not know whether that is the case in Temple Run. So I mean, games can be of two types, right? One which is happening simultaneously. So the two participants are deciding something simultaneously, or it can be sequential, where one person plays a strategy, then the other person plays, and the game goes on. In a sequential game, that's when you can actually strategize, because the moment you change something on your front, the other person can change. So it will depend on that, whether the other person is strategically changing the actions depending on what the other participant is doing.
Oh, thank you so much. My temple run was just an example. So I just wanted to know anything similar to that.
Yeah, so chess is a fantastic example. I think chess is one area which has made tremendous progress in terms of how machines learn. I think today it is almost impossible even for the best player in the world to beat the computer. In fact, there was a huge controversy when Gary Kasparov was the top chess player, and he lost with the computer at that time. And he did not like it. He actually took it to heart, and he said that this is cheating because computer can learn my games. I cannot learn the computer game. So he said that I will learn thousands of computers games, and I will come back and I will beat the computer. So his criticism of that computer was that computer knows Gary Kasparov's games, but Gary Kasparov has
Gary
not
Kasparov.
learned his game. So I mean, there is a strategic element in that, and we have made tremendous progress on the artificial intelligence front as far as chess is concerned.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, that's correct. Gary Kasparov lost to Deep Blue at that time. Um,
Yeah,
so
Mr.
Sindhu,
and
should I read the question
one
or?
second. There is
Yeah,
Mr. and Mrs. Joshi who have raised hand, so we
yeah,
can take
yeah,
that.
yeah.
So my question is more generic question. It is about, like, for example, last few months in this corona pandemic, I was looking for some examples where mathematicians have contributed um, in terms of making a difference,
Mm-hmm.
because with their skill, because it is all about, again, data and presenting the charts and trends and trying to extrapolate that to what might happen and what kind of parameters to be applied in projecting these
Mm-hmm.
pandemic cycles. And there are few which we could find, but not to an extent which really could motivate a child at that level. Where, so I was trying to understand your perspective on that.
Yeah, so there are quite a few papers. I mean, not necessarily in mathematics per se, but there are a lot of papers that have come up in economics, for example, that have looked at how we can project biostatistics. So I think it's more of a multidisciplinary thing. and we may not have the literature right now. For example, the SIR model is quite famous, so students can look up on SIR model. How does the infection spread, and how we can project what is happening. But the only problem over there is the challenge that mathematicians will face is the lack of institutional knowledge that they have. So that's where you have to become multidisciplinary, or you have to work in teams. What do I mean by institutional knowledge? Now you can always project based on the data. That's a skill that mathematicians have. But what they do not know is that there is something that will also change in between, and that's the response from the government. Okay, so for example, in couple of weeks back, we saw a lot of deaths that were taking place in India because of the lack of oxygen cylinders, lack of lot of things. But we can expect that there will be some response by the government. Whether it will be enough, whether it will not be, that's all a topic of debate. That's a separate question. But there will be some intervention, and that intervention will change the availability, and that's where the challenge comes in when you're projecting these curves. Because something that, so when we project something, we assume that everything that is happening right now will be how things will continue. But that's not how things are going to happen, and that's where mathematicians will not be the right people to do it, because they don't have the institutional knowledge. They don't know how the economics works. So here we have a lot of scope for behavioral aspects to come in. How do you even encourage people to take vaccines? How can you communicate to people that, okay, vaccines are safe? You take the vaccines. It will be really good for you, or things like that. And that's where I said that the experts have to do a better job at communicating to the common people. Experts, they write things in such a way that it's not easily palatable for common people, and that's where we have a big challenge. And this is just a start, where we start communicating with kids these complex ideas, try to bring down to their level. So to summarize, what I'm saying is, yes, there will not be a lot of papers in math, but if you look at other areas, there will definitely be papers which will involve projecting or estimating something.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
There was a question in the chat. It says, can topics in Epsilon build a career in medicine? More specifically, genetic research.
Not my area of, I'm not an expert in that area, so I cannot comment. Sorry. So right now, I don't think we are doing anything that is related to that area. One of the challenges is, I think, getting the right people who know both the fields and can, intersect uh, between those two areas. If we can get people who can do that, I think it will be fantastic.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
This is Medha here, Siddharth's mother.
Yes.
Actually, a lot of data science is applied to bioinformatics and genetics. So actually, I do think that you guys have a huge role to play. Probably you can look into it, because therein lies the future application of math to medicine.
Yes.
Because bioinformatics is, most of it is just data science and modeling and its applications.
True. No, I agree. The only challenge is having some expertise in that area when you talk about. So see what has happened. Why we find that people in commerce fields are disengaged with mathematics. The reason for that is the teachers who teach mathematics in commerce colleges come from science background, and most of them have a degree in pure mathematics. Now when they talk about mathematics to a commerce student, there is no way that they are able to connect. So the commerce student keeps asking, where am I going to use? And the person says, I don't know. Or the person says, okay, trigonometry is used in astronomy. And then I ask, okay, I'm not going to do astronomy. I am not here to do pure math. If I wanted to do pure math, I would have taken science and done BSc. I want to know where can I apply. And that's where you need a person who understands math and also understands the field in which this person is talking. And that's where I think it's important to have someone who understands biological sciences or bioinformatics before that person talks about how that can be applied. I can talk about something, but it will be superficial. It won't,
So,
students will not find the passion when I speak about
yeah.
it. That's my only the point that I was
So,
making.
so therein lies the importance of giving students like the Epsilon kids options of having math with biology and bioinformatics during their graduation or post graduation. I don't see this happening in too many institutes across the country.
True,
Are
true,
there
true,
any
true.
institutes where biology intersects mathematics at graduation fields?
I am not aware. I think we will try and find out if that is the case. I think there is something in CMI. They do a course on biostatistics, uh, but
No, biostat is a lot different from
lot
bioinformatics.
correct. So that's the most that I have seen. Uh, I think the data science as a field itself is evolving. So we will see a lot more applications of or lot more courses that come up within these areas. So we will try to find that out. It's a good question that you have raised, and we will try to find that out and give some
Please
information.
let us know options if there are any in India. I'm sure there are many abroad, but such options need to be provided to our Epsilon kids because who knows, one of them might just turn out to be the
Yeah,
next super champ of the block.
true.
If I can say something here, so I think what Medhaji brought as a point is very is a very good point. Um, One of the things that I see is most of us who are involved in raising a mathematician foundation, I mean, not most of us, all of us are not from we don't have the least connection to a medical background. The only time we have connection is when we go to a doctor. So if people are there in this epsilon community who are from the medical field and who may know people who can bring down these kind of stuff to the students level, right? I mean, that is very important. Of course there will be people who are experts in this, but who can bring this particular thing down. Then we can see how we can explore these possibilities and bring in these kind of faculty. And I think that will be really good. One of the challenges that I see in in having a science program versus a math program, and this is one of the favorite things that I like to talk about, but I'll try to cut it short. So in math we can jump from anywhere to anywhere, literally, almost literally. You can do a course in counting without doing much in algebra. You can do something else without doing something else. But science doesn't work like that, right? Science is like you complete the ground floor, only then you can move on to the first floor, and from first floor you can go on to the second floor. So science demands a lot of prerequisites to do some intense stuff. And mere reading or talking about black holes, wormholes, and all these things might not actually give them a very good insight into what that is. I mean, they can just be infatuated about that particular thing, but to do something intense will require, I think, there lies a big challenge in terms of, I mean, challenge that seems to me, but I'm sure all these can be maneuvered around. For instance, when Hariom does this course on quantum wonder, he does offers a course called Quantum Wonder once in 2 years under Ram. And this course is mainly meant for high school students who are very good in mathematics. And usually they don't teach quantum physics as something, as a part of the course, at least until undergrad. So he is able to bring it down at least to high school level. The question is, can it be still brought down without just touching upon the topics, is a question. And somebody who has that kind of teaching experience, only they will be able to do. And one
Can
of the
I?
things I feel, sorry, I'll just say this and I'll conclude. One of the things I feel is most of the experts or researchers, they have the ability and they have the inclination to work with students who are doing research, not with school students. and that is where lies a big gap. There are very few people like Murli sir, who can come down to a school students level, like Hari, who can come down to a school student level. So there are very few people who can do that particular thing. So that is where I feel that we need to find these kind of people, and if they have that ability to bring down something to a school students level, then they get a very good exposure before getting into college, and they can make an informed decision of what kind of math do I really want to do, before they actually take a course and see, oh, is this the kind of math that I will do? Yes, Medha.
May I say something?
Sure, sure.
Actually, yeah, actually, what I have seen is with Siddharth, because my training is primarily in biochemistry. So with Siddharth, a lot of stuff which he has doubts, he asks, we have tried to explain COVID and other kinds of genetics and other stuff in a language which he can understand. And he does pick up very well. So while you are right that for science you do need to have a good grounding, I think that with few of us parents who are interested in contributing in any which way to probably use our education, our passion, because I teach medical students. I teach my niece who is in high school. I teach my son who is going to finish primary school. A lot of us who can, if I may say, decipher the scientific language and make it palatable to school kids. And I'm sure there are many of us, many like us who have a passion to teach school kids. I think these Epsilon kids are really special and we should give them that kind of an exposure, because the kind of work which these kids do at this age is absolutely amazing, and the kind of understanding which Siddharth has for miRNA based vaccines, which is something which is quite ununderstandable to a 9-year-old. The day I explained it to him, he picked it up. So we just need the right kind of teachers. So
Sure.
that these kids
We'll
can
reach out to you, Dr. Medha. on a serious note, we'll reach out to you. And I think what you're making is a very wonderful point, because we need people from the medical field who have the experience, and
and who
for
have the
somebody like
passion. I'm very,
exactly,
very passionate about it,
exactly.
because if my kid, the other day he was explaining mRNA vaccines to one of his teachers and she thought he was nuts. It is a very sorry state of affairs, but she couldn't quite understand how a 9-year-old can understand an mRNA based vaccine, and he was explaining to how it is done. So,
but I think we also need to accept that we cannot expect all teachers to understand, because they are coming from a different background, and they are coming from
I completely get
yeah.
it, Vinay sir. She thought he was nuts. And I really had to explain to her that I have the kind of background where I will be able to explain it to him. And that is, she thought he had like mugged it all up or whatever. So I really think it is time for entry of people with a biological background to Epsilon, who can provide your kids with that kind of background, so that they excel not only in say economics or an accounting or an actuarial science. I hope I got the word right. But also in a data science or a bioinformatics or a biological field, because I feel therein lies the future. Sorry for your time.
Not at all, not at all. I think that's a very good point, and we'll definitely think over it. The more flavors we can bring, the happier. It's directly proportional to our happiness.
And Chintu, I'd love to be associated with Epsilon in any which way I can. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any other question? All right. So
I think there were a couple of questions.
No, they were covered. I think they were covered. Yeah. I see. Okay. Oh, so there was one question by Gayatri. Yeah, Gayatri, please proceed.
So kids in Cambridge curriculum, they make the stream selection or the subject selection in grade 8. And they sometimes the way school offers, you have to choose between science and commerce or science and business studies. So it becomes constricted, though actually Cambridge allows you to take a mix and match of courses. So I may want my son to study science, but he may be interested in economics. So there can be a conflict because we don't know uh, whether he will be interested in finance or not. So do you suggest any merit of doing a combination course, like do both finance and science, which is possible by taking self-study? Or like, is there a merit for doing each sciences separately? Like, I'm just trying to understand the premise.
No, I think that's a very valid point. The way I think of it is, if you know what you're passionate about, then go into that one field and do some courses in the other field if you are also interested in that. But if you don't know, that's the challenge, and I don't have a good answer if you don't know what you're supposed to do in that case. So I will not answer that. But if you really know, then select one, and the other area you can do it on your own rather than doing it along with your as a part of your curriculum. You don't have to do it as a part of the curriculum then in that case.
I'll reword it. Like science, we automatically think like children should study science till grade 12. But economics or finance, we have no ability to give a pre-exposure. So is there a way
Right.
to give a pre-exposure so that we
Oh
can
yeah, yeah.
decide better?
Yes, definitely. So and I think that's, but it has to be all self-study, right? You cannot expect the school to do that. And the difference over there will be when you learn science, you're already learning the science in the ninth year. Like, right. If you have started in first grade, when you are in ninth grade, you have done 8 years of science. So you have already, it's like it's your first love. You already created that and kind of an attachment. So now someone new comes up, it's very hard to create that attachment. So that bias will always exist. So it all depends on the exposure that they will be able to get. So this is where, as Medaji also pointed out, depending on the area, this will be just a beginning. And if they think that, okay, this looks something interesting, the further readings are there. So they can read more on those further readings. And accordingly, they can decide whether this is something that interests them. I think more than anything else, it is about the curiosity that the kid has in that field. If the kid is curious about certain aspects in that field, then automatically you can decide that, okay, this is a area. But I think the exposure is important, and it's very hard that you will be able to get any kind of exposure with the school curriculum that is there. You will have to go beyond the school curriculum, especially for the epsilon kids. If it would not have been an epsilon kid, then the school curriculum is the only way by which you would have got exposed.
Thank you.
And if I can just jump in over here, I don't know about your college, Hari, but in my college, most of us took commerce because we did not like science, and we did not like arts either. So commerce was the only choice that was left. So you do commerce, and then you will end up getting exposed, and maybe you like it, maybe you'll not like it. So I think that is where there is a need for exposing children to these aspects. And it could be in the form of, I think, if parents have some kind of finance and economics background, it could be in terms of the conversations that you have at home, the kind, discussions on news that is happening. Like Medaji said, she's talking about all these medical things because she's a doctor. So it is very natural that these conversations come up at home, right? So apart from that, we can expose them to different areas. Of course, they have to be a little matured, for their age, to understand. Like, for example, the topic that the workshop, and of course, this I'm saying in response to Vivek's question as well, that in math.com we have had 5th and 6th standard students also sitting along with CA students. But the thing was, of course, these fifth, sixth standard students were also quite bright, but because they were exposed to this kind of things earlier, it gave them a different flavor of math, right? And Hari, maybe you can mention about how these kind of things influenced Rohan and Adityan, and how it completely changed their stream altogether.
So, I mean, when you mentioned that people taking commerce because they did not want to get into science. I was the person who wanted to get into science, but I did not get into science because I got less marks in 10th standard. So I came into commerce accidentally when I did not want to get into commerce. And one of the reasons why I did not want to get into commerce was that I saw my brother who was doing commerce and he did not do anything during his college days. And I said that I don't want to waste my 5 years doing nothing. That was the reason why I did not want to take commerce. But then when once I went into commerce, I knew that there is no way out. Now I am into this, and I need to make sure that I do it really well. So that failure in my 10th standard made a big difference to me, and I started doing things that are not required in my curriculum, and that's how the other things happened. Uh, but when it comes to exposing the kids to these kind of areas, I think there are few students like Rohan you mentioned, who is currently doing his CA. Now he is in CA final, and he decided that okay, he's more interested in applied areas of mathematics. He's not interested that much in the pure areas of mathematics, although he was brilliant in number theory, he was brilliant in pattern recognition and so on. But he decided that this is not what I want to do. Similarly with Adityan.
Sorry, he decided after doing science in 11th standard and getting infected by your math and economics and finance in 10th and 11th standard. That is when he changed to commerce. So that is what I wanted to mention.
Sorry, I did not remember that. But same was with Adityan. Adityan came in 9th grade to the courses that we offered. And at that time, he was so passionate about physics that he was a pure math person. And then he got exposed to computer science and economics. And last year, he attended a conference on theoretical computer science with a economics flavor to it. And he said that he could understand the concepts from economics because he had attended these kind of sessions. So he could span these boundaries because he had some exposure in these areas. I mean, I can go on. Let me give you a simple example in accounting, how math can be used. In accounting, we all know profit is sales minus cost. So every company's profit is calculated as sales minus cost. Now sales is fine because it's a one line item. Cost is an aggregate. Now cost, there are different types of costs. Some costs are R&D costs. Some costs are related to selling the goods. Some costs are production cost. So when we deduct cost, we are adding all the cost. Now when we add all the cost, we are giving equal weights to all the costs. So an interesting question that you can ask is, should all the costs be weighted equally, or should the cost be weighted differently? What would the shareholders want? Whether they want the one rupee spent on R&D, is it same as 1 rupee spent on administration? Is 1 rupee spent on R&D the same as 1 rupee spent on production? So these are all philosophical questions. And this is where, if you have a strong background in optimization, if you know what is the objective function of the shareholders, you can start thinking about what should be the optimal weights on which this should depend. So we can move away from the traditional accounting where sales minus cost is profit, and start thinking about how different types of costs can be weighted differently, and we come up with a weighted measure of cost. So here is where you will apply mathematics. So these are the areas where you will never think about applying mathematics, and that's what happens with majority of, I mean, we did not get exposed to these things in the curriculum. So don't depend on curriculum to change. Don't depend on the systems to provide you everything. It's not going to happen. And even if it happens, it's going to be a very gradual process. It will be a slow process. The question is how you can take things in your control, because here we are not talking about trying to bring about a change in the society. We are trying to bring about a change in the individual's learning appetite. So when we are talking about individuals learning appetite, we don't want the system, or we don't depend on the system to provide these things. We have to learn these things on our own for the things that are not provided. Like it could be application of math in economics. It could be an application of math in chemistry, for example. So we will have to take things on in our hands to do those things.
Thank you, Hari. Thank you. And especially with Rohan and Adityan's example, I really feel this kind of early exposure can make a difference. Where is physics, and we are talking about algorithmic game theory that Adityan is doing. So yeah. All right.
Sindhu had put in the chat that we have a guest speaker. Sindhu, you want to say something on that, because it is related to the data science and COVID models.
So the guest speaker, I think on Wednesday for the kids. So he's somebody who's worked on the COVID data model for the city of Sacramento. And he will talk about the simple science that drives AI models.
Fantastic. I mean, what better than hearing from the horse's mouth, right? So someone who is working with the government.
Any other questions? Okay. All right. So shall we wind up here, Hari?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Hari. I'm sure all the parents are looking forward to, especially the last two sessions of theirs. And be ready with your notebook and pen and homeworks uploaded in the Google Classroom. just joking.
No,
So thank you all.
So I'm looking forward to many of you joining. It's in the evening only, but I think there will be parent session at the same time. So I don't know whether the timing.
No, the parent sessions for the second week will be at the mornings. I think.
So
actually,
now they don't have an excuse
sorry.
then.
Sorry, I'm
No,
wrong. It's the guest lectures. The parent sessions will coincide. Yes, sorry.
Yeah. The parents sessions will coincide with my session. So unfortunately, that may not work out.
Still, there are two of them at home, so maybe they can exchange notes later on.
What time in the morning next week? The parents.
I think it's better to refer to the schedule. The parent sessions are in the evening. In order to
Evening
avoid
only,
any
right,
confusion,
okay.
just look at the schedule.
Okay.
Thank you everybody for
Thank you.
joining, and thank you so much, Hari, for this wonderful session. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.